If you've ever had teriyaki chicken in America, you know what it looks like. Chunks of chicken smothered in a sweet, syrupy sauce on a bed of white rice. You can get it at any mall food court or buy a bottle of Kikkoman and make it at home. This was my entire understanding of teriyaki for years. But the dish this word was originally describing has almost nothing in common with what we've been making. That's not a knock on the American version. I love it. I was just curious about the original dish. So I spent 3 months researching how the Japanese make it, and it turns out I didn't even know what the word teriyaki meant. Before I could figure out what the word teriyaki actually meant, I had to understand what I'd been making for years. For most Americans, this bottle is teriyaki. If you look at the label, there's 11 ingredients on it, only some of which truly belong there. Now, I've made probably 50 different American teriyaki sauces. There's even a whole video on this channel about Benihana's version. They all follow a similar formula: soy sauce, sugar, something acidic, and usually garlic and ginger. The original Japanese version is nothing like any of this. If you drew a through line between the most popular American teriyaki recipes, you'd end up with something pretty close to what I make at home. For the sauce, combine 1/3 of a cup of Kikkoman soy sauce and 3 tablespoons of brown sugar in a small bowl. Add 2 cloves of grated garlic and 1 teaspoon of grated ginger. Then 2 teaspoons of unseasoned rice vinegar and a teaspoon of toasted sesame oil. Finally, toss in 1/4 cup of water and 2 teaspoons of cornstarch. Whisk everything together until the sugar is dissolved and the cornstarch is fully incorporated, and then set it aside. For the chicken, let's heat some neutral oil in a large pan over medium to medium-high heat. While that's coming up to temp, pat some boneless, skinless chicken thighs dry and season them with salt and pepper on both sides. Most American teriyaki recipes tell you to cut the chicken into chunks before you cook it. A lot of people tell you to do the same thing with fajitas. It's weird. But I like to keep the thighs whole and slice them after they've cooked and rested. Smaller pieces have more surface area, so they dry out faster. If you leave them whole, you'll end up with juicier meat that's got a real crust on every piece. Cook these for 5 to 6 minutes without moving them until the bottom is golden brown. Flip them over and cook another 3 to 4 minutes until they're at least 165 degrees in the middle. When these look good to you, move them out onto a cutting board and let them rest for 2 to 3 minutes. Then cut each thigh into 1.5-inch pieces. You want to have everything ready before the sauce goes into the pan. Then turn the heat back onto medium, give the sauce a good whisk because cornstarch settles at the bottom, and pour it into the same pan the chicken just came out of. As it heats up, you'll notice the sauce change consistency and turn into the starch-thickened gravy most Americans know as teriyaki. A brown sauce you pour over rice much the same way you'd pour gravy over mashed potatoes. When the sauce is thickened to your liking, add the chicken back to the pan and toss it around to coat every piece. Let it cook another 30 seconds or so to finish in the dish. Spoon it over some white rice and garnish with sesame seeds and sliced scallions. This is a standard American chicken teriyaki plate. It's basically the average of every American teriyaki recipe online. It's good. Millions of people make some version of this every week. But the word we're using for it, teriyaki, is actually 2 words. Teriyaki, literally glossy, grilled, broiled, or pan-fried. To most Americans, teriyaki is a noun. It's a sauce you buy in a bottle. To the Japanese, it's a verb. It's something you do at the stove. Teriyaki originally is a Japanese technique that produces a specific result. A piece of protein finished in a sauce that reduces down onto it. That's the gloss. That's the teri. This isn't a knock on the American version. It's one of my favorite dishes of all time. They're just 2 distinct traditions that share a name. The split happened pretty recently. The original teriyaki is a Japanese fish glazing technique from the 1600s. By the 1950s, Hawaiian teriyaki recipes with no mirin and no sake were being printed across the country. They used ginger and garlic instead. In 1961, Kikkoman bottled that Hawaiian version as a barbecue marinade. They used wine and vinegar in place of mirin and sake. In 1976, Toshi Kasahara opened the first teriyaki shop in Seattle. By 2007, there were 519 teriyaki shops in Washington state, most of them run by Korean immigrants. Their sauce ended up being closer to bulgogi with more garlic, sugar, and sesame. That's how we got modern American teriyaki. In Japan, none of that happened. The sauce there hasn't changed much in hundreds of years. They actually have a specific word for it, tare. It's typically 4 ingredients: soy sauce, sake, mirin, and sugar. Most Japanese cooks use a 2-2-2-1 ratio. 2 parts soy sauce, 2 parts sake, 2 parts mirin, 1 part sugar. They call this agonhi, which translates to the golden ratio. You'll just whisk everything together until the sugar is dissolved and set it aside. Now, there's a couple of things you should know about some of these ingredients. First, the sake. Do not buy anything labeled cooking sake or ryu rishu. They add salt to this so they can sell it as a seasoning instead of as alcohol. You should always just buy an inexpensive drinking sake, something like Kikkoman, which they have at most grocery stores. It's way better than cooking sake and usually cheaper too, which is kind of wild when you think about it. The mirin is where it gets really confusing. 3 things are sold as mirin in America, and only one of them is the real thing. True mirin is called hon mirin. It's made from 3 ingredients: glutinous rice, rice koji, and sochu, a Japanese spirit. Most Americans are buying this instead, Kikkoman aji mirin, which means mirin flavored. If you look at the label, the first 3 ingredients are glucose syrup, water, and alcohol. Rice is the 4th ingredient. The front label even says sweet cooking rice seasoning. In Kikkoman's defense, no actual mirin was harmed in the making of this mirin-adjacent substance. Then there's mirin fu, which means mirin style, like Mizkan's sweet cooking seasoning. It's the same problem, mostly corn syrup. Real mirin has complex sugars and real alcohol. These both reduce naturally when you're basting the sauce to form the tare. Neither aji mirin nor mirin fu will do that, which is probably why our American sauce needs cornstarch to thicken. So what do you actually buy? Something like Eden Foods mirin. The label says water, rice, koji, and a little sea salt, and it's about 10% alcohol. Real hon mirin has no salt, so Eden isn't 100% traditional, but the amount is minimal and it doesn't really affect the taste. It's one of the only real mirins you can actually find in the States, and it's available on Amazon and at Whole Foods. Okay, that's everything that goes into a traditional Japanese tare, but the tare isn't what makes this teriyaki. The tare comes from what happens next. For Japanese teriyaki, we always start with skin-on, bone-in chicken thighs. Turn the thigh skin side down and feel for the bone. Then slice straight down the center to expose it. Cut along each side, keeping the blade against the bone to waste as little meat as possible. Trim around the cartilage and slide the knife underneath to free the bone. Save these bones, we'll come back to them later. Check for any small fragments and trim them away. With the thigh still skin side down, pull the skin flat and trim any excess that extends past the meat. If the thigh is uneven in thickness, cut horizontally through the thick section so it cooks evenly. Then flip it skin side up and score the skin all over with the tip of your knife. This lets the fat escape as it renders and keeps the skin from curling up in the pan. Pat the chicken dry with paper towels on both sides and place the thighs skin side down in a dry pan with the heat off. We're starting with a cold pan and no oil because we want the fat to render out of the skin slowly. If you drop chicken onto a hot surface, the skin contracts almost instantly, traps the fat underneath, and you end up with skin that's brown on top and rubbery underneath. Starting with a cold pan gives the skin time to render its fat and crisp up naturally. So only turn the heat on to medium once the thighs are in the pan. Cook the thighs skin side down for 7 to 8 minutes without moving them. As you see the fat pooling in the pan, take a paper towel and wipe it out. Is this not the most Japanese thing you've ever seen before? They literally clean a pan while there's something cooking in the middle of it. What you're looking for on the skin is a color called kitsune iro in Japanese. It literally means fox color. Basically a deep golden brown or the color of fried chicken, which it is at this point. The thighs are ready to flip when they look about 2/3 cooked through from the bottom up. Flip them over to the flesh side and cook another 4 to 6 minutes. The chicken should be about 80% of the way done because we'll be finishing them with the sauce. When it looks good to you, remove the thighs from the pan and let them rest on a cutting board. Clean your pan again and scrape out anything that's stuck to it. Wipe away any grease and make sure it's dry, then return it to medium heat. I know this obsession with cleanliness doesn't make sense, but it will in about 30 seconds. Once you're back up to temp, pour in the tare from earlier. As soon as it hits the hot pan, you'll get an immediate aroma of the alcohol cooking off. The precise amounts for the tare are in the recipe linked in the description below. Within a few seconds, the sauce will start to bubble. When it's bubbling, put the thighs back in the pan skin side up. You'll notice the bubbles are very small and fine at first. You don't want to start basting when the sauce is still thin. You want to let it reduce a bit first. Once you notice the bubbles start getting slightly bigger, start spooning the sauce over the skin. Apparently, some Japanese cooks apprentice under a teriyaki sensei for up to 30 years in hopes of earning the honorific title of Master Baster. I'm sorry, that joke was wide open and y'all know it. As the sauce reduces even more and the bubbles get larger and develop slower, keep basting. This is why we wiped all that fat out of the pan. The sauce is water-based, so any fat you leave in the pan would cause the tare to just slide off. Each time you baste, you're building many thin layers of sauce onto the chicken, kind of like a lacquer. And each layer is where a lot of the flavor is coming from. The different sugars in the mirin caramelize at different temperatures, fructose first, then glucose, then maltose, one at a time as the sauce gets hotter. That staggered caramelization is what gives you a much more complex flavor than plain white sugar ever could. After several minutes, when the sauce is thickened and reduced down to about 1 to 2 tablespoons, the chicken will be glistening, and you'll notice that it reflects the light like a varnish. At that point, you'll know you're done. Pull the chicken out of the pan and let it rest for a few minutes, then slice it into strips along the bias. It's most often served with short grain rice and shredded green cabbage that's been soaked in ice water. This is a traditional Japanese chicken teriyaki. Okay, one more thing before the taste test. Remember those bones we saved from earlier? We're going to turn them into a sauce, a very specific kind of sauce that Japanese home cooks keep in the fridge year-round. And they actually have a name for it. They call it Banno-dare, which translates to all-purpose sauce. And it's genuinely all-purpose. You can use it on rice, noodles, as a dipping sauce, a marinade, or reduce it down to a glaze like we did earlier. Plus, it's the base for hundreds of different dishes. To make it, take the chicken bones and char them under a broiler until they're caramelized with edges starting to blacken in spots. Then mix up a big batch of the golden ratio tare, 2 parts soy, 2 parts sake, 2 parts mirin, 1 part sugar. Toss the charred bones in and lightly simmer everything together for 45 minutes to an hour and a half. During that time, the caramelized bits from the bones are infusing into the sauce, giving it a deeply roasted and savory flavor. At the same time, the cartilage releases gelatin, which adds body to the sauce as it reduces. Continue simmering the tare until it coats the back of a spoon, and then strain out the solids. What you're left with is a bone tare that chefs in Japan have been making this way for centuries. You can keep it in the fridge for a couple of weeks or in the freezer for a month or two. Either way, just bring it up to a boil for a few seconds before you use it. Alright, back to the taste test. I know a lot of y'all want me to pick a winner here, but I'm not going to, because even though they share a name, these are completely different dishes. The Japanese one is actual teriyaki by definition. The American version is chicken in a thick Asian-style gravy. But, like children, I love them both equally. Just the Japanese one slightly more. If you want to know how hibachi restaurants actually make their fried rice, check out this video. Later, Master Basters.
ユージニアス